All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I am Elton Poole. I'm a police officer with the University of Iowa Police Department. And before we get started, people like to know who am I talking to, or better yet, who's talking to me? So I was in Hatch, a police officer in my other life. I was in the military. I was a geek working on helicopters. And then I went to a specialized unit. I became a combat skills instructor for special ops. And then I had turned in a uniform and became a police officer full time. And what you'll find is that other officers in the department either have prior services or came from another police department just like me. So the number one question that I always get is how safe is Iowa City? And that's a fair question. But I tell people that it's relative. Um, because if you grew up in a big town, like I was, like Chicago, New York, coming to a city like Iowa City is no big deal. And if you come from a small town like, um, I don't know, like Solon, coming to a city like Iowa City could be overwhelming. I also tell people you're only as safe as you are prepared mentally and physically, which is why we're going through this presentation to let your student know what the options are for preparations to keep yourself safe. Oh, and another thing before we start, I don't care if you don't remember much of anything else about this presentation. Just remember to have a conversation with your student. You might think they weren't paying attention, but trust me, they're listening. And the hardest thing for parents to do is that trust and letting go. And I'm going to say this again. This might resonate with some of you. The hardest thing for us to do as parents is that trusting and letting go. So within our police department, we have an emergency communications center. And feel free to take screenshots. This is a non-emergency number at 319-335-5022. But just as a note, in an emergent situation, even if you're not sure, it's okay to dial 911. It's not an inconvenience for us. We just assume, be safe than sorry. Within our campus safety organization, we have the police department. And within the police department, we have 42 state sworn police officers. Now, we are state certified police officers. And within the organization, we also have other like subdivisions, like our bomb squad. We have a forensics team, computer forensics team. We have canine officers. And our canines are different from the canines from the other police departments. Other departments, their canines specialize in drug enforcement. Our canines specialize in explosive detection. So oftentimes I tell people that our dogs are the bomb. I know you didn't sign up for corny humor. We are open 24/7. The reason I put this in here is because you'll be amazed at how many people call our office and they're like, hey, how late are you guys open? I'm like, we're a police department. We open 24/7. And they go, okay, so you open on the weekend? I'm like, we're a police department. We open 24/7. Just know that we have a 28E agreement with local law enforcement agencies. That means we share resources. So, for instance, let's say Iowa City Police Department gets a call of a bank robbery and our officers are tied up. Well, they'll call the nearest unit, whether it's our agency, Johnson County Sheriff, North Liberty Police, Coralville Police, and they'll show up and take over the call, and vice versa. If we are very busy, anyone that dials 911, they will send the nearest unit to go respond. So in other words, if you call, somebody's going to show up. We have a security division as well in our agency. We also have students. We hire students, as a matter of fact. So if your student is interested in a job, great networking opportunity, this is one of the most highest paid jobs for students on campus. And my selling point is they make their own schedule, and um, pretty much depending on the assignment that they choose, they actually get paid to study, which is a good selling point. So there's a mantra in law enforcement, and the mantra goes, the police are the community and the community are the police. What that means is we can't do this alone. We need community partners to assist us. So for example, we have what they call student care coordinators. They're mental health advocates. We pay for part of their salary, and the Dean of Students Office pay for the other half of their salary. And what's nice is they can step in to intervene in areas where police is not necessary. If someone is under duress, um, we got to move away from that old school of policing. If someone wasn't complying, they think, oh, they're just being defiant. And we realize, maybe they weren't complying because they didn't have the ability to comply. Maybe they had a mental health issue on board. And is jail the place for them? I don't think so. So this is our effort to include community partners for that realization that sometimes people need help outside of police. We have a Guiley Center, and the Guiley Center is a behavioral health crisis stabilization center. What's so nice about them is if we come across someone, oh, my light went out. If we come across someone that's, again, under duress, maybe with suicidal ideations, instead of taking them to the hospital, we have the choice to take them to the Guidelink Center, where they have behavioral health crisis stabilization personnel that can help them with acute symptoms of stress. Or let's say we're on patrol and we come across a student that's under the influence of alcohol. Well, instead of arresting that student and taking them to jail, we have the option to actually take that student to the Guidelink Center for sobering and detoxification services. We hand them over if they're cooperative, and then we walk away, and they get to walk away with no criminal charges. We have a mobile crisis unit. I suggest that you take note of this number because it's not just for us. Let's say you are in New York and you're talking to your student and they're giving you signs and cues like, Mom, I can't do this anymore. Or Dad, nobody cares. These are signs and symptoms that, okay, something is a little off, but you can't really be there. You can call the mobile crisis unit and they'll respond within 30 minutes to actually talk to your student and help them with resources. And it doesn't matter what it is. It can be they're having trouble with class. It can be they need a place to live. They're hungry, suicidal ideation. It doesn't matter. This is a resource for you. This is what we use as well. We offer Night Ride. It's a free transportation service for the students. They start at 9 p.m. and ends at 4 a.m. Now to see the actual footprint, just go to our webpage. And what I like about it is, let's say your student is out studying late or they're being festive. It doesn't matter if they've been drinking, we will not turn them away. Again, have that conversation, tell them don't act up, because if you act up, we'll show up. But other than that, the idea is to get them home safely. We also have Hawk vouchers. This is free money. So let's say they're out, they want to order an Uber. We authorize $5 vouchers that they can use. And as long as they're within a 5 mile radius of campus, um, they um, the driver will honor that $5 Uber voucher. We have a Rave Guardian app. This is a safety app that your students can download for free. If they use the University of Iowa Hawk email, they will get the additional amenities. We pay for the licensing for additional amenities. So in other words, they'll duplicate, you'll learn about this later, the Hawk Alert on this service. What's nice is it has a safety timer. So if they're traveling from point A to point B and they don't arrive safely, it'll automatically notify what they call a guardian. Now you can set anyone as a guardian, but tell your students don't set you or a best friend as a guardian, because there's no guarantee that once it notifies you, you'll actually receive the notification. As I mentioned earlier, we are a police department. We're open 24/7. Make the police department your guardian. That way we'll get the notification and then they'll start the process of someone coming to look for your student. There's also a 911 panic button feature. There's a text to 911 feature. So let's say they're in a position where they don't really feel comfortable. They can actually take a picture and then send a text message to our police department and they can remain anonymous. Oh, I have to throw this in there. In the event of an emergent situation, dial 911. Realistically, yes, the app is awesome, but if you're not, the app is only good if the phone is in your hand and the app is open. In other words, if you're being accosted, you're not going to be like, well, hold up, bad guy, let me pull out my cell phone. Oh no, wait, you're going to get it now. Let me open up my app. Sounds ridiculous. So to that note, tell your student to learn the features and functions of your cell phone. In other words, if you're being accosted and your hands are tied up, can you voice activate your phone to have it dial 911? I can. Another nice thing about dialing 911 is if you're in an area with an updated PSAP system and we are in that area, when you dial 911, an icon pops up on our GeoMap representing the caller. So think about it. You dial 911, we can see where you are. And if you leave the line open, we can hear what's going on in the background and discern whether or not to send additional resources. Now, of course, I had a geek that was like, well, the 911, it operates off the Doppler principle and it uses towers to triangulate your location and it's only accurate within 10 meters. And I was like, well, newsflash, genius. If we were standing outside within 10 meters, guess what? I can see you. I'm just saying 10 meters. And just like with any cell phones, as a caveat, if you're inside the building, we can only locate the actual building. We don't know exactly where you are within the building. One of the biggest things that any campus deal with is theft. So we have a program as part of the Bike Index registry program, and you can register your bike for free. And if they register their bike, the University of Iowa Campus Safety, we purchase tags that they can put on their bikes to track it. So if someone were to steal the bikes, and it doesn't matter if you have a cool Android or one of those Apple phones, we have a tag for either version that they can put onto their bike and use it to track their bikes. We offer safety training. Remember earlier I talked about you're only as safe as you're prepared mentally and physically. So we have a civilian response to active shooter events training. That's an active shooter training. It's free. We have a rape aggression defense. We keep that separate. We keep the genders separate. So the acronym we use is RAD. So we have RAD for those that identify as female, and then RAD for those that identify as male. The reason we keep it separate is because we teach different techniques. So, for an example, for someone that identifies female, we teach them techniques to defend themselves against someone that's much larger than they are. So, in other words, what would they do if they ended up on the ground and someone much larger than them ended up on top of them? How would they fight? How would they survive? We offer CPR classes, Stop the Bleed. Just go to our website and just take a look at what we have to offer. We have a lost and found. What's nice about our lost and found is when the items come in, they take a picture of every item and put it online. So all they have to do is go to our website and just scroll through to identify whatever items that they believe that they lost. Emergency notifications. So the Hawk Alert. Now, the Hawk Alert was established to notify faculty, staff, and students of an emergency situation that's, I guess, what we would consider like an imminent threat. And what's nice is this year we offer an options for parents to actually opt in and receive that Hawk Alert. So this is a screen to take particular attention to. Feel free to screenshot it, take a picture of it, or just go to a website and look for how you can opt into that Hawk Alert. Now, if you choose not to opt into the Hawk Alert, if you follow us on social media, you can also get that alert through the social media platform as well. Now, the Crime Alert, we will send out an email. For Crime Alert, it's not necessarily an imminent threat, but it may be an ongoing safety issue. So we like to keep the community aware of anything that might be potentially a safety issue. Staying safe, remember I said to talk to your students. You know, all the things that you told them growing up, just remind them. You know, something as simple as lock your doors. When I came to Iowa, I didn't know that there were people that didn't lock their doors. I was like, wait, what? I don't care if you're going to check your mail, doing laundry. Crime is a crime of opportunity. Lock your doors. And again, more common sense stuff. Have that conversation with their students. Trust their instincts. Be aware of their surroundings. You know, when you're walking from point A to point B, I got to throw this out there. Many times we see students with their heads in their phones and they're not paying attention to the people around them or traffic. I've seen students literally step out into traffic and almost get hit by a vehicle. So again, have that conversation with your student. Our investigation sent us a memo saying, please talk to the parents about scams. Sextortion, you can look that up. You know, tell your students if they meet someone online, don't send compromising pictures of themselves to strangers or better yet to anyone. But if they do and they start contacting them saying, hey, if you don't send us money, we're going to release this to family and friends, don't send them anything. Contact our police department immediately. We have a computer forensics team that's so resilient that departments from around the state contact our computer forensics team for assistance. Cars, if they're driving their cars and parking it in a storage area, tell them it's still their responsibility to check it periodically. Make sure you got a good battery, because it'll be a bad day when it's time to go home and the car doesn't start. Definitely keep a spare key. Don't have any things of value sitting in the seats. For bikes, we already talked about the bike registry. We ask that you use those quality locks, something that would be very difficult to cut through. Now we can't, people, parents are sometimes they go, well, what kind of lock should I use? And as a police department, we can't advertise kryptonite or we can't advertise, using the U lock, because, we just can't do that. I'm going to give you a trigger warning right now. This is a topic that um, may be difficult for some. And if it is, feel free to exercise self care. You can mute it or turn off the screen. Um, and it's okay. We're going to talk about sexual assault. Sexual assault, unfortunately, is the most underreported crime in the United States. So nationally, only 18% of sexual assault gets reported. And when it comes to college campuses, only 5% gets reported. Now, this is our definition of sexual assault. According to Iowa Code 709.1, it is any act done against a person's will if, and you look what's in bold, consent is not attained. A person cannot give consent if they're under the influence of any kind of drugs or alcohol. Uh, well, in the definition, they talk about a sex act, and a sex act is actually making contact with another person's genitalia, either digitally or with a foreign object. So what this screen basically highlights is over 80% of sexual assault nationwide is perpetrated by someone that they knew to some affinity. And unfortunately, when it comes to college campuses, it's close to 90% is perpetrated by someone that they knew to some affinity. So it's not always the dangerous strangers hiding in the bushes, even though that could happen. I'm telling you that there's a better chance that they're going to meet someone that's kind of cute, sort of, kind of, maybe not really. Um, and the number one antic of a predator is to isolate. They use alcohol as a tool. Again, have this conversation with your students. A lot of people think a predator is someone that's, in the movies, they're always described as the creepy person. But in reality, this is a person that may be attractive looking. They may be the athlete, or they may be the intellectual person or the funny person. They use that as a tool to gain the other person's trust, to get them to lower their guards. And remember the number one antic? Yes, isolate. Now, growing up, we were taught, and some of you that identify as women, help me out here. What were you told growing up? Don't wear scantily clad clothing. Um, Watch your drink. Go out in numbers. Well, they used to stop right there in terms of risk reduction. And what we realize is, it's not fair to tell people don't be victims. In order to really stop sexual assault, the perpetrator has to decide not to commit the act. Now, these risk mitigations, they're still great. Still share these things. But when you have this conversation, the conversation needs to go both ways. Not just not just don't um, ignore these risk mitigations, but also don't rape. Respect boundaries. And then if you're hanging out with your friends, be mindful of what's going on. If you see a situation that doesn't look right, if you don't feel safe, we're not saying put yourself in harm's way. Call us. You know, that's why we're here. And like I said earlier at the very beginning, it's not an inconvenience to dial 911. Now, for your parents, if your student ever comes to you and say that if they've been sexually assaulted, the best thing you can do is listen without judgment. And I'm going to say this again. The best thing you can do is listen without judgment. They already have power and control taken away from them. And the last thing they need is for their loved one to do it as well. We do have um, the services here. We have advocates. You know, if they don't want to call the police, they don't have to. They can call the RVAP, DVIP, and these are people that will actually, you know, they're trained for trauma response that can actually sit with their students and help walk them through the process. On this screen, again, take a screenshot. This is how you can contact us and other services, like our threat assessment team. Oh, yeah, that's me. Yes, I still have the hair. I had to shove it all up in his hat. I was like, wow, I should probably try to look, you know, cool for this presentation here with my cool hat. I do community outreach, and I'm one of the people that helps out with educational offering. And what's nice is this department, they trained me in crisis intervention. So that person that responds to people that's having a mental health crisis. And what's also nice is if students take my class, I give them tools so that they can be, what do you want to call it? They can recognize when either themselves or someone else is under duress and give them tools to help point them towards resources to help them out. I'm kind of hanging around, make sure that if there were any questions that we, oh, there we go. I mean, we're still live, so if anyone has questions, feel free. Oh, yes, sure. And if you have your cell phone on you, feel free to take a picture of the QR code. That'll also take you to our page. Since someone asked me to go back, ah, another question that came in. All right. No problem. No problem. Here's another resource page if you're inclined. All right.